Benjamin from Optimal Canine. Before you start training with your dog, it's important that you establish a clear set of tools to communicate. So that's what we do when we're talking about markers. Markers is just basically the set of words that you use to communicate clearly with your dog. So before you do any training, you need to make sure that you're good at using your markers. All the words that you say on a day-to-day basis are not good for your dog to know, because that can create things that are kind of confusing. If I'm using full sentences with my dog, it's a lot harder for them to pick out what they know versus don't know. But if I'm using just the same consistent words, then my dog can easily grasp what I'm trying to say. So your markers for Optimal Canine, and this is what we'd recommend, is using good to let your dog know that they're doing something correct, using to let your dog know that what they just did was incorrect, and then using no as a punisher marker. So typically when you say no, that comes with a consequence. So being clear about that so your dog knows exactly what to expect when you say something to them. All the extra stuff doesn't really do your dog any good. You're just giving them more stuff to pay attention to. Keep it short and sweet. Moving into motivators, we really can come up with a lot of different motivators for dogs, but it typically falls into one of these three categories. So food is typically considered a motivator because most dogs do enjoy food. All things have to eat, so your dog has to eat at some point. So food can always be something that you use to motivate your dog. That's the primary thing that we use when we're doing board and trains or in-home sessions. Praise is something that is really circumstantial. Some dogs love praise, some dogs don't care. But praise is considered a motivator. If your dog loves praise, then it can be great to use and implement into your dog's training. Play is something that a lot of dogs typically enjoy. You can use different items to play with your dog, whether it be a frisbee, a ball and a rope. You can use a tug. All those things can be parts of play. Even you just kind of being rambunctious with your dog and kind of pushing your dog around and letting them kind of bump into you in a state of play where there's boundaries, but it's still allowed. That can be used to motivate your dog to do the things that you'd like them to do. So we bring up these motivators because you need a motivator in order to get your dog to perform behaviors consistently. So finding out what your dog's motivator is and then using that consistently through training. We recommend that you start off with food to mold behaviors and get the dog to know the correct positions. But then once you do that, you can move to maybe play. If you notice, oh, my dog really likes to play with this ball, well, let's incorporate it into the dog's training. The four quadrants are positive reinforcement, negative reinforcement, positive punishment, negative punishment. And basically, if it's positive, that means that I'm adding something to the equation. And if it's negative, that means I'm removing something from the equation. So positive reinforcement, for example, if I'm reinforcing the dog positively, then I'm giving them something, whether it's their toy, whether it's praise, whether it's food. I'm giving them something to make them or encourage them to do that behavior more. But if it's negative reinforcement, then I'm taking something away. So I'm getting something and saying, I'm taking this away from you in order to get the desired behavior that I like. If I'm positively punishing the dog, then that means I'm adding something. And in this situation, I'm adding a punishment. So I'm saying, you're getting punished for doing whatever you just did. Negative punishment means that I'm, again, taking something away. I'm saying, this is something that you're not allowed to have, maybe. Maybe if it's a bowl of food. And I'm saying, well, since you performed this behavior that I did not like, I'm punishing you by taking that bowl of food away from you. So that would be an example of negative punishment. So you can use all these quadrants to get your dog to where you'd like them to be, but it's important that you're fair, and it's important that you understand that this is how dogs learn, through all these quadrants. So if you're trying to train your dog without using all of the quadrants, then you might run into some issues. Like there's trainers that don't use any punishment, which is a quadrant that's needed in order for dogs to learn scientifically. So if you're only using a couple of the quadrants, then you may have issues. Hate to say it. So moving into how you would use these different quadrants. When you're looking at corrections in leash pressure, typically when we're talking about negative reinforcement or negative punishment, if I use a lead, and Matt, if you want to come over here right quick. If I use a lead, and let's say I have the lead around Matt here, and I'm wanting to negatively reinforce a behavior here, if I continue to pull on this lead and pull and pull and pull until he does what I'd like him to do, then that's me negatively kind of reinforcing the behavior, because I'm constantly pulling, and then he does whatever I like. Maybe it's sticking the hand in the cookie jar. He finally does it. Then I release that pressure. Now, if I'm just going to punish a behavior, positively punish a behavior, maybe he's doing something that he shouldn't be doing, and I say no, and I pop it. And that's me punishing him for doing whatever he did. But it's important to realize that every dog is different, and that you might think you're punishing a dog and you're not. So each dog has its own kind of genetic makeup and what causes them to find something aversive versus it just be play maybe to them. So it's important that you find out what is something that is considered a punishment to your dog, and then using that to be effective. So we can use leashes as forms of guidance, and we can use leashes as forms of punishment. We can use e-collars as forms of punishment, use Hermspringers as forms of punishment. And then when we move over to motivators, we can use food as a motivator, we can use praise as a motivator, and we can use play as a motivator. So finding the balance between the two. If your dog is learning a behavior, then you should be using motivators. If they don't know it, then there's no reason for you to be punishing it, because they don't know it. But once you have taught a behavior, so they do know that you motivated them and they do know what it means, then you move into, okay, well, if you know what this means, what's the reason that you're not completing it? That's where we can move into more of a punishment state, where we're either positively punishment or we're negatively punishing the behavior to make sure that the dog gets done what it's been taught. Hope this helps.